Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.
So Jenny is up, the last formal speaker before the drinks. So I guess there was a while back we did a So Cozy on the design of cities. I think Tom was instrumental in that. So this, I guess, is a little bit, this session is a little bit of, the design of cities. And so Jenny had the last presentation of a nail salon, rethinking the nail salon, and just an awesome project. So here you go.
Hi, everyone. So my name's Jenny Rodenhouse, and I'll be presenting Sensor Salon. The project was done last year at Media Design Practices, which is a graduate program at Art Center College of Design. And it really looks at utilizing design process and design as a practice within research. So this was an Intel-sponsored wearables project. And when we first began, my collaborator and I, Christina Ortega, really started to acknowledge this growing population of not only devices, data, but also wearers, and was really wondering what are the implications of this growing population, and started to kind of think about, what are these new systems or services that might start to exist in order to support them. And so today, kind of through this presentation, I'll take you through our general research process and end up with our insights towards the end. When we began, we really started looking at existing services within Los Angeles. So nail salons, we were thinking, oh, here's a service that already exists where people are getting things installed on their body. We went to lots of different salons and went through the nail art installation service. So if some of you aren't aware of it, there's gel nail, which is essentially a plastic that you can get installed on your hands. And within that, you can embed lots of different objects. So we sat through an over 2-hour installation process. And that begins with kind of this negotiation. And then it's fascinating for us to observe how our dynamic with our nail technician changed. So here you start off with small talk, and then eventually it's gossip, and then it's almost like a therapy session. So it's this collaboration between you and your technician where you're saying what I want, but she's also an expert and can say she recommends, yellow instead of pink. So that's kind of that overview of this 2-hour breakdown. And you do actually go through the nail process of the gels, go through a baking session. So you're putting your hand in UV light. And what we discovered through our research was that this nail art community is super passionate and really experimental. So we really started by blending these two worlds together, so both nail art and sensors and wearable tech, and kind of pushing it to the extreme on purpose. So we started exploring these new aesthetics and new interactions, thinking about, what are these programmed sensor personalities to, what are these 3D forms in which you could extend off the nail to host additional electronics. And through this, we developed kind of a whole range, looking at power, so how to generate power from just like simple watch batteries embedded on the nail to using piezoelectric so that you could, as you tapped your fingers, you could generate a small enough electricity to light up a LED. To then power distribution, we made breadboard nails so you could host additional sensors off the nail, as well as develop circuitry nails. And then, of course, looked at different sensors from haptic feedback to flex sensors to give people this general new, maybe touch sensations. And then we wanted to, of course, install these on people. We were testing them on ourselves, but went through an entire installation process one day where we invited 2 individuals in, and not only did the whole nail installation of 2 hours, but then it goes through installing the electronics. So this was incredibly helpful for us to kind of learn through this process and see how people sort of reacted to these, what we were calling sensor extensions. So we asked people to kind of go through just some simple tasks just to see what would happen. And Chrissy's wearing, she was wearing nails that were giving her haptic feedback as she would approach a certain object. So sort of towards proximity sensor. And she said, her comment after was, I would use these nails if I wanted to stop smoking. Because as she would reach, it sort of startled her at the time. So this was like an incredible breakthrough for us when we heard this. We were like, oh, it's really not about the nails so much. It's really that by installing them on the people, they kind of help them speculate on what they really wanted personally in their wearable device. So from that, it was really changing it from the nails to what are these services to support these personal wearable tech. And so from that, we completely kind of shifted. I mean, it was great to have these nails. I think the nail extensions really became this way for us to center it within reality, that you could actually make them. But then the installation service became much more of like this speculation based on our initial inspiration. So we really thought about what are these new roles, skill sets, what are these tools that you need, and what is a salon as a physical space? So what space would you need in order to essentially make what Chrissy wanted of nails that would help her stop smoking? So we kept thinking, okay, well, all right, you would need a nail artist. They would sit next to a developer, an interaction designer. Maybe you would need an industrial designer. Okay, well, maybe a doctor would sit there too, because they would essentially want to be reading this data and helping her achieve her goal. So it became this really interesting blend of roles and different tool sets. So kind of this blend of salon culture and maker lab. So this summer, we installed it in my apartment, taking inspiration from LA kind of salon culture starting in people's homes, and opened it for the first time, hiring all of those individuals that we initially listed off. And the space really took on this aesthetic of bridging both something from like reality and then taking the aesthetics of maybe a wireframe and to kind of indicate this more speculative space of saying, you know, what if this did exist? So it kind of blended to create this more prototype space. So the place really became, we were hypothesizing this around this like place that became a platform for both speculation, debate, and collaboration. This was our client, Sarah. She came in for the day. We hired Whitney. She was our nail artist. She travels around and does nails for celebrity photo shoots. And she wanted to learn how to put an LED on a nail, so we helped her figure out how to do that. We hired 5 developers and designers, and also hired a sensor ethnographer, which was kind of this new role of listening to both the client's needs and trying to interpret it into sensors and code. The day started off through kind of this brainstorming process where Sarah was sharing about herself, then the design and development would share what sensors were available, and then that was suddenly this great learning opportunity for everyone where we realized, you know, Sarah has no idea that you can even like code an LCD screen, and she could have it say whatever she wanted. And then Whitney at the very end kind of shared her nail toolkit. So it was like this process of everyone kind of getting brought up to speed together. Then the room separated. So you have design and development goes on to one side and starts coding and printing different forms that Sarah kind of just off the top of her head was like, I want a lion. And so you're like, okay, sure, let's do this. And we'll scale it and we'll fit it to your finger. And then on the other side, you have Whitney and Sarah starting the install process. So kind of like the base of the nails, for which once all the other parts are ready, we can then place on. And then other things that, you know, it's just, we're not there yet. Certain things are too big to put on the nail. So we're like, okay, well, we'll just make them and then show them to her. So she wanted to see what a GPS would be like. So we hooked up the GPS and had her walk around the neighborhood just so she could experience it and kind of think about what she might want in her next appointment. So in the end, this was Sarah's first install. And the most interesting thing that came out of this was that more about this documentation aspect of, you can see what she got on her first appointment, but then thinking about, when does she come back for her next appointment? So nails have like a 2-week life cycle. So that concept really inspired us to think about how wearables could have both, maybe they're just 2 weeks, or maybe they're more of a permanent install or temporary. So how could that lead to more of like this documentation of mental, physical, and digital transformation of Sarah? And from this, we were like really inspired by nail art culture, but through this process, it really became about like more of a platform for all wearable technology. So how could you have this physical location that people could come in, collaborate with people who are experts in their field, and then be able to edit and alter their wearable technology on the fly. So from this, we kind of, some of our outcomes were, what are these new cultures and aesthetics of blending the two worlds together? What is wearable tech disruption? So thinking much more about beyond just a one device, but thinking about it as an entire system. So a network of people, sensors, data, and devices. And then also, we love that idea of like a wearable that can be altered, edited, and updated and upgraded. And then also made to order. So thinking about how you can help drive kind of this personalization and be more transparent about the process. And then, of course, this new service model. So thinking about a shop around the corner that you can visit to, edit and upgrade and install your wearable device on your body. So thank you. So that was just, we did it in a day, but we kind of talked about different models where, maybe a tattoo shop model is you come in for a consultation, then you come back. So maybe the team you would meet with them, then they get an idea, and then they'd actually build and make. So we like the idea that it could kind of, it's dependent upon maybe what the client wants. Oh, it was a full day. We started in the morning, and then we ended at about 3. But depending upon, we kind of think of it as like depending upon what the wearable is, so we were like, oh, you could exchange a nail technician for a tailor, and then she's changing or making a shirt instead. So it would just depend on for the time to make the wearable. Yeah, I think that's what was so interesting to us was, a lot of it became just around like simple sensors that we could install now. So a lot of it was more just like haptic feedback. But we see it as like, oh, where can we go with this? But I think the interesting thing about prototyping on fingers is that it kind of indicated this more model of accessories that you would be wearing multiple different wearables on your body. So the hand kind of became this moment for us to realize that each finger could host something different, which reflects much more where we're kind of going with wearables, is that you're going to have maybe a shirt and then a necklace and something else. So thinking about them as this ecosystem, I think was really interesting for us, and that's what a learning came from kind of installing on the hand itself. Well, we were sourcing all of our sensors just at like simple electronic stores. So, I mean, it would depend on what the client was interested in. Andres, you had...
Yeah, I'm just curious about the possible tensions that you notice between the culture of the designers, the developers, the nail artists, and whether they had any difficulties talking to one another, or how did you deal with that?
I mean, I think that's the great thing about being stuck in one room together is that you would just, if you didn't know, people were just kind of, I think it was because it was set up as more of like a sharing environment. People were just willing. And I think also the atmosphere, and we're really trying to push that like idea of like salon culture where it's about like chit-chatting and hanging out, and that's a part of it. So we're hoping that everyone would kind of learn too. So if you didn't know what that meant, people were sitting next to each other who could help you.
All right, thanks, Jenny.